Hey, do you ever feel like life needs an instruction manual?
Yeah,
Like, where's the guidebook for making those big decisions about work and relationships and everything in between?
totally. It's like we're just supposed to figure it all out as we go, right?
Exactly. So we're diving into Designing Your Life this week, a book that says maybe we can approach those big life choices with a little more intention, a little more design thinking.
And it's not as intimidating as it sounds.
Oh, tell me more.
Well, the book's real power is in taking those aha moments and turning them into action, like into actual experiments with how we live and work.
Okay, I can already tell this is going to be good. So for our listener who's maybe new to this whole design thinking thing,
Mhm.
how would you explain what that even means in the context of, designing your life?
That's a great question. Well, at its core, design thinking is about approaching problems with a beginner's mind. It's about letting go of assumptions and being open to new possibilities.
So it's like instead of getting stuck in this is how it's always been done, you're asking what if.
Exactly. And that what if can be incredibly powerful. It opens up a world of possibilities.
I love that. So how does this actually play out in the book? Give us an example.
Well, they talk about this thing called choice overload. You know how sometimes having too many options can actually make it harder to choose?
Oh, 100%. Like when you're staring at 20 different kinds of cereal at the grocery store and you end up just grabbing the same one you always get.
Yes. Or like when you're overwhelmed by all the potential career paths out there and you end up feeling paralyzed and not doing anything.
It's the worst. I feel so seen right now.
Right. So the book suggests that by narrowing down our options to a more manageable number, say 3 to 5, we actually make it easier for ourselves to move forward.
It's like creating a curated menu instead of being faced with an overwhelming encyclopedia of choices. Makes total sense.
Exactly. It's about simplifying to amplify.
I love that. Okay, so less is more when it comes to options. What else you got?
Well, another big idea is this concept of Odyssey plans, which I think is so cool.
Odyssey plans. Okay, I'm intrigued. Break it down for me.
So instead of having just one 5-year plan, which, let's be real, almost never actually pans out, right?
Oh, tell me about it. Life rarely goes according to plan.
Right. So Odyssey plans are about having 3 5-year plans happening at the same time.
Wait, 3 5-year plans at the same time? That sounds like a recipe for overwhelm, not a solution.
I know, it sounds kind of crazy at first, but it makes so much sense when you think about it this way. You have your dream plan, which is like, if everything goes perfectly, this is what I want my life to look like in 5 years.
Okay, I like it so far. So that's plan A. What are the other two?
Plan B is your backup plan. Like, if for whatever reason my dream plan doesn't work out, this is my solid alternative. And then plan C is your wild card plan.
A wild card. I like where this is going.
Right. It's like this plan is totally different from the first two. Maybe it's something a little outside the box, a little more, what if I just went for it?
So instead of putting all your eggs in one basket, you're hedging your bets and exploring different possibilities.
Yes. And the book calls it prototyping your future self.
Prototyping your future self. I
Eh.
love that. Okay, so we've got our 3 Odyssey plans. What's next? How do we actually start moving towards these different versions of our future selves?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. The book talks about this concept called life design interviewing.
Okay, this sounds promising. Tell me more.
So it's kind of like regular job interviewing, but you flip the script. Instead of you being interviewed for a job, you interview people who are already doing what you think you might want to do.
Oh, I love that. So it's like instead of just reading a job description or stalking someone on LinkedIn, you're getting the inside scoop from someone who's actually living it.
Exactly. It's about getting that real world, unfiltered perspective. You get to ask them all the nitty gritty questions. What's a typical day like? What are the biggest challenges? What are the most rewarding parts?
So it's like getting a sneak peek behind the curtain. No more idealized versions of a job or a career path,
Right. You get to see the good, the bad, and sometimes even the ugly truth.
which can be invaluable when you're trying to make a big decision. And speaking of big decisions, the book also talks about this thing called anchor problems, right? This one really resonated with me.
Oh, yeah, the anchor problems. This can be sneaky little devils.
They really can. So for our listener who's like, what the heck is an anchor problem? Can you give us the lowdown?
Sure. So an anchor problem is basically when we get so fixated on one particular solution to a problem that we become blind to other possibilities.
It's like we're so anchored to that one solution that we're not even willing to consider that there might be other maybe even better ways to approach the situation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They give this really funny example in the book about a guy who's determined to hike to the bottom of the Grand Canyon.
Okay, I'm
So
listening.
this guy really wants to take a mule ride down to the bottom, but there's a weight limit.
Oh, no.
I know, right? So instead of exploring other ways to experience the canyon, like hiking a different trail or taking a helicopter tour, he's completely fixated on losing enough weight to go on the mule ride. He's so anchored to this one solution.
It's like he's missing out on years of enjoying the canyon in other ways because he's so focused on this one particular path.
Exactly. And that's the danger of anchor problems. They can keep us stuck, sometimes for years.
And the thing is, there's often more than one way to achieve our goals.
Exactly. Sometimes we just need to widen our perspective a bit to see those other possibilities.
So how do we break free from those anchor problems? What's the solution?
Well, the book talks about the importance of reframing our problems.
Reframing.
Yeah. So instead of asking ourselves, how can I lose enough weight to go on the mule ride? We can ask, how can I experience the Grand Canyon?
Oh, I see what you mean. It's like by shifting the question, we open ourselves up to a whole new world of possibilities.
Oh,
That
exactly.
is so powerful. And it's something we can apply to so many areas of our lives, not just those big bucket list goals.
Mhm.
Like even in our day-to-day lives, there are so many opportunities to reframe those little problems that pop up and find more creative solutions.
Absolutely. It's a game changer once you start seeing the world through that lens.
Totally agree. Okay, so we've talked about choice overload, Odyssey plans, life design interviewing, and anchor problems. What other gems does designing your life have in store for us?
Well, one of the biggest takeaways, and I think it's something that comes up again and again throughout the book, is this idea of building failure immunity.
Failure immunity. That sounds intriguing. What exactly does that mean?
So it's basically about shifting our relationship with failure. Instead of seeing failure as something to be feared and avoided at all costs, we learn to embrace it as an essential part of the learning process.
So it's like instead of letting the fear of failure paralyze us, we use it as fuel to propel us forward.
Exactly. It's about reframing failure as feedback.
Reframing. There's that word again.
Right. So instead of thinking, oh, I messed up, I'm such a failure, we ask ourselves, okay, what can I learn from this experience? How can I use this to do better next time?
It's about adopting that growth mindset that we hear so much about these days. Instead of seeing our abilities as fixed, we embrace the idea that we can learn and grow throughout our lives.
Yes. And that shift in perspective can be so liberating.
It really can.
Hmm.
It's like when you're not so afraid of making mistakes, you're more likely to take risks, to try new things, to put yourself out there. And that's where the real magic happens, right?
Absolutely. It's about giving yourself permission to experiment, to be a work in progress.
Because let's face it, none of us has it all figured out. Life is messy, it's unpredictable, and sometimes it throws us curveballs when we least expect it. But when we can approach those challenges with a sense of curiosity and resilience, that's when we really start to thrive.
So well said. It's not about avoiding failure. It's about learning how to fail forward.
Yes, fail forward. I love that.
So how do we actually build this failure immunity? What are some practical steps we can take?
That's a great question, and one that I'm sure many of our listeners are wondering right now.
Well, one powerful technique the book talks about is journaling. But not just any kind of journaling. This is about keeping what they call a good time journal.
Ooh, a good time journal. That sounds way more fun than your average everyday journal. Tell me more.
Okay, so it's not about writing pages and pages every day. It's actually very simple. All you have to do is take a few minutes each day to jot down when you felt most engaged, most energized, most alive.
So those moments where you're like, yes, this is what it's all about.
Exactly.
Okay, I love it. I can already tell this is going to be a game changer for me. I'm a sucker for a good journal prompt.
Me too. And the cool thing is, you start to notice patterns. Maybe you thrive in collaborative environments, or maybe you get an energy boost from solitary work. The insights can be incredibly valuable.
It's like becoming a detective of your own joy.
Exactly. You start to uncover those hidden clues that your days are always whispering to you.
I love that. Okay, so we're building our failure immunity, we're keeping a good time journal, we're reframing our problems, and we're prototyping our future selves. What other life design hacks does this book have up its sleeve?
Well, they talk about this really cool brainstorming technique called mind mapping.
Mind mapping? I've heard of that, but I've never actually tried it.
Yeah.
Is it as awesome as everyone says it is?
It's even better. It's like brainstorming on steroids.
Okay, I'm sold. Tell me more.
So you start with a central theme in the middle of a piece of paper.
Okay, like what kind of theme?
It could be anything, career or relationships or creativity, whatever you want to explore. And then you just let your mind run wild.
So you just start jotting down any words, ideas, images that pop into your head.
Exactly. And you connect them to the central theme with lines and branches. It's a very visual way of brainstorming, and it can be incredibly powerful for unlocking those hidden pathways in your brain.
It's like you're giving yourself permission to think outside the box and explore all those possibilities without judgment.
Yes. And the book even shares this cool story about a guy named Grant who was feeling really stuck in his job. He used mind mapping to connect with his love for the outdoors, which ultimately led him to some seriously exciting new career possibilities.
See, now that's what I'm talking about. Real-life examples always help bring these concepts home for me. It's like, okay, this isn't just some abstract theory. It actually works. People are out there designing their dream lives with these tools.
Right. And that's what's so inspiring about this book. It's not just a bunch of feel-good fluff. It's packed with practical tools and techniques that we can all use to create a life that feels more aligned with our values and aspirations.
Love it. So we've brainstormed some potential paths, we've interviewed people in those fields, and now we're ready to start making some decisions. How does designing your life suggest we navigate those sometimes scary choices?
That's where things get really juicy.
Oh, I love juice. Give it to me straight.
So the book talks about the importance of discernment.
Discernment. Now, there's a word I haven't heard in a while.
Right. It might sound kind of mystical or even a little intimidating,
It kind of does.
but it's actually quite practical. It's about recognizing that we have multiple ways of knowing something. There's our logical, rational mind, the one that analyzes spreadsheets and weighs the pros and cons.
That's usually how I make decisions.
Yeah, me too. But then there's our intuition, our gut feelings, our emotional intelligence, that deeper wisdom that often gets drowned out by the noise of our everyday lives.
So it's about bringing your whole self to the decision-making party, not just your inner logician.
Exactly. And the book encourages us to tune in to those subtler signals.
Like, what does your heart say? What feels most aligned with your values? Which option sparks a little bit of excitement in your soul?
Yes, yes, yes.
I love that. It's not about ignoring logic altogether. It's about honoring both the head and the heart in the process.
Exactly. Because when you can tap into that sweet spot where logic and intuition align, that's when you know you're on the right track.
I love that. Okay, so we've tapped into that sweet spot. We've made a decision. Now what?
Well, now comes the hard part. Letting go of the paths we didn't choose.
Ugh, yes. The what-ifs can be so tempting.
Right. But the book offers this really simple but powerful mantra. The secret to letting go is moving on.
Okay, I like that. It's about shifting your focus from what could have been to the possibilities of the path you've chosen.
Exactly. It's like ripping off a Band-Aid. Sometimes the anticipation is worse than the actual act of letting go.
So true. But even with the best planning, life rarely goes exactly according to plan, right?
Oh, tell me about it. I think that's why building that failure immunity we talked about earlier is so crucial.
It's like, even with the most beautifully designed blueprint, there are always going to be unexpected detours, maybe even a few walls that need to be knocked down along the way.
And that's where having a supportive community comes in. The book really emphasizes surrounding yourself with people who believe in your ability to design a life you love.
Yes, having that cheer squad in your corner makes all the difference.
Mhm.
But how do you go about building that supportive community, especially if you're just starting out on your life design journey?
It can start with something as simple as identifying those friends, family members, or colleagues who already lift you up. You know, the ones who inspire you, who believe in you, who you can always count on for support.
Your hype people.
Yes, your hype people. Share your journey with them. Don't be afraid to ask for their support.
It's about being vulnerable, opening yourself up to the possibility of both giving and receiving support. And that takes courage.
It does, but it's so worth it. And if you feel like your current circle isn't quite cutting it, don't worry.
There's more. Tell me more.
The book encourages us to get out there and find our people.
Okay, I'm listening.
Join a book club,
Hi.
a hiking group, a professional organization, anything that aligns with your interests and values. You'll be amazed at the connections you make.
It's like building your own personal board of directors, a team of people who get you and want to see you succeed. I love that.
And remember, building a supportive community is a two-way street. It's about showing up for others just as much as it's about them showing up for you.
It's about celebrating each other's wins, offering a shoulder to cry on when needed, and just generally being there for each other through thick and thin. Speaking of celebrating wins, The book also touches on the importance of gratitude, right?
Absolutely. Cultivating gratitude is like building a muscle. The more you practice it, the stronger it becomes.
So how do we strengthen that gratitude muscle? What's the workout routine?
The author suggests keeping a gratitude journal.
Another journal. Okay, I'm in. What do I write about?
It's so simple, but so powerful. Take a few minutes each day to jot down those little everyday moments that spark joy. A delicious cup of coffee, a heartfelt conversation,
Ah.
a sunny day, whatever fills your cup.
It's about shifting your focus from what's missing to what's already present and beautiful in your life.
Exactly. It's about recognizing and appreciating the abundance that already surrounds us.
I love that. Okay, so we're building our gratitude muscles. We're surrounding ourselves with supportive people. We're failing forward. What else? What other life design secrets does this book hold?
Well, I think one thing that really sets designing your life apart is that it doesn't shy away from those bigger questions, like the meaning of life kind of stuff.
Oh, snap. Things are getting deep.
Right. We've talked a lot about practical tools and techniques, but it's that sense of purpose, that deeper meaning that fuels the journey, wouldn't you say?
100%. It's like
Yeah.
you can have all the maps and compasses in the world, but if you don't know where you're going, what's the point?
Exactly. So the book really encourages us to get clear on our values.
Values, like what's important to us.
Yeah, like what do we stand for? What do we want to contribute to the world? What legacy do we want to leave behind?
Those are some big questions.
They are, but they're important questions. And the book provides some really helpful exercises for uncovering those core values. Because when we can align our lives with those values, that's when we start to feel a deeper sense of purpose and fulfillment.
It's like finding that sweet spot where passion, values, and action intersect.
Exactly. And when you hit that sweet spot, work doesn't feel like a chore. Relationships become more meaningful, and life in general just feels more vibrant.
Okay, before we wrap up our deep dive into designing your life, I wanted to circle back to this concept of failure immunity that we've touched on throughout this conversation.
It's funny how much emphasis the authors place on that one idea.
It's like it's the secret sauce to making all of these other life design principles work, right?
Exactly.
When you're not crippled by the fear of making a mistake, you're free to experiment, to take risks, to actually try out all these incredible tools the book gives you.
Exactly. It's like you were saying earlier about adopting a growth mindset.
Yes.
When you believe in your ability to grow, you're more likely to embrace challenges, to persevere through setbacks, and ultimately to achieve those big, audacious goals.
It's about swapping out that voice in your head that says, I can't, with one that says, I can't yet, but I'm working on it.
Yes, exactly. And that shift in perspective can make all the difference.
Totally.
Right.
So much of this is about mindset, isn't it?
It really is. And one thing I really appreciated about designing your life is that it doesn't shy away from those bigger questions, like
Yeah.
finding meaning and purpose in our lives.
Oh, for sure. We've talked a lot about the practical tools, but it's that sense of purpose, that deeper meaning that fuels the journey, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And the authors emphasize that meaning isn't something you just stumble upon, it's something you actively create.
Okay, I like that. So how do we do that? How do we create meaning in our lives?
Well, it starts with getting clear on our values, what's important to us, what do we stand for, what impact do we want to make on the world.
Those are some big questions, but they're important ones, right?
Absolutely. And once we have a better understanding of our values, we can start to make choices that are aligned with those values.
So it's about living a life that feels authentic and true to ourselves.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot where passion, values, and action intersect.
And when you hit that sweet spot,
Yeah.
magic happens.
Right. Right. Work doesn't feel like a chore, relationships become more meaningful, and life in general just feels more vibrant.
Ugh, I love it. So good. Well, this has been such an inspiring conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today.
My pleasure. It's been so fun chatting with you.
Likewise. And to our listener, we want to hear from you. What resonated most with you today? What small step will you take today to design a life you love? Hit us up on social media and let us know.
We love hearing from you guys.
And remember, as the authors of Designing Your Life say, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? Until next time, happy designing.